Called innocent, but you call the innocent people of Nyanza region militia.
Who did?
William Ruto, the deputy president then.
Well, that has not stopped him from accepting compensation to go to the people who suffered. So that is why I'm saying
But Honorable Jared, why do you, a parliamentarian, it's so disturbing, is it, and appalling when you, a ranking member of the party, ODM party as well, today at the expense of presidential proclamation, bills it or tout it big matter, big issue when the president says victims should be compensated. Yet there is an entire report called the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, where more than 40,000 submissions have been made, which documented all the historical injustices since 1963. And you parliamentarians overlook that because the occupant at State House, whoever it is not willing to give it the direction to do so. You have the power to invoke that. Why not also relook back?
Why haven't the victims of Agala massacre, for example,
when we joined President Ruto to help stabilize our nation, what was on the cards then were the victims of police brutality, and we voiced it as much.
Fellow Kenyans, I know majority of us don't normally accept this, but the fact remains that there is no single day that people will tell us that they are coming together, or maybe them deciding to come together was for the benefit of Kenyans, or maybe them shaking hands, you know, having a coalition government, you know, joining the parties together is a way of uniting Kenyans. One thing we have to know that Kenyans have never been, like we are always united. See what normally happens right now. We have got what is called the Rema Feast at Uhuru Park. See the way Kenyans, you know. What Kenyans don't want, and one thing I've ever noticed with Kenyans is that Kenyans are always united. When you see them doing things, the Gen Zs, the millennials, whenever you see them doing things, because those are the two generations that are making these people think that now Kenyans are separated, you know, we are not united. Now they have to come together, they have to join hands, you know, to make us feel like this Kenya is ours. And we are, I'm saying, in other words, I'm trying to say that William Ruto and Raila Odinga, they joined hands. You know, they formed their own broad-based government, saying that we are forming a broad-based government to make sure that Kenyans are united. Let me ask a question. If at all they've been talking about the unity of Kenya, if at all they've been pressurizing, now we are united, we have formed a broad-based government so that Kenyans are going to be united, talking about the compensation and all that, how many people have been compensated so far? No, how many people have been compensated? People died. So according to them, instead of preventing the killings, now they're encouraging the killing so that they can find an excuse of their own ways of uniting Kenyans by paying. You can't pay somebody who has died. You can't compensate somebody who has been killed. You can't compensate somebody who has died. That is one thing that we have to accept, that there is no way the government can tell that they've been compensating people that have died. Never. Now, today in the morning, during the daybreak, Ayub Brigadier had got 3 guests. Number one, he had got MP Jared Okello, who was talking about the issue of the handshake. That the handshake was done in order to save the country of Kenya after Raila joined the government, and then these MPs, you know, when Raila, I realized that when Raila joined the government, his MPs are seeing like everybody is a thug. Some of the, not all the members, not all, but some of his MPs are seeing that like everybody is a thug.
You had a point.
Yes, my friend here, Honorable Ekuru Aukot.
Well, they just call me Ekuru. I'm not elected, so
doctor.
I'm not
doctor. Doctor.
I don't want to claim a title that I don't.
Dr. Ekuru Aukot suffers what we call selective amnesia disorder. When I did say that the country was at the brink of precipice, the brink, I was personally in Parliament. And by the way, he's quickly forgetting that until Honorable Raila Odinga shook hands with President Ruto, we were on the other side, and we could see the country collapsing literally on our faces. The young people literally breached Parliament.
Why did they breach Parliament in your view?
I'm trying to qualify why I'm saying we were at the brink of precipice. Of course, you know that there was an impending finance bill which was being debated and was due for passage in Parliament the same day. So when they brought down a fortified gate and made their way into Parliament, searching for members of Parliament either to punish or to kill, that to me is a brink of precipice. And
so you say you voted no?
I voted no.
You voted no.
I voted
and they were calling for either those who, for you guys to vote that finance bill down because of the punitive tax proposals.
Correct.
And what was and you were in the tunnel.
I was
campaigning for safety.
I was in Parliament.
So
yes.
so why then did your colleagues, your party's Secretary General Edwin Sifuna and Embakasi East MP Babu Owino, they were in the safe company of the people because their position was clear. Your position as well was clear of the party and you voted no. Why then did you scamper for safety if you did the right thing that the people wanted?
We voted no, and we can be vindicated by the records in Parliament, together with the electronic voting gadgets. You know, we vote electronically. And at some point, we actually demanded for our voices to be heard by votes saying, Honorable Jared Okello, Nyando constituency, I vote no, so that it could go on record. But remember that when they breached Parliament, when somebody breaches Parliament, for example, bringing down a gate, the first thing that comes to you is that they are up to something. You know, they are up to something. Because why would somebody breach a gate when they can still have a safe entry into Parliament? So our quick thinking was that these were thugs coming into Parliament to carry out heinous acts. So that is the first step. And what do you do? And when they come in large numbers, and for certain times, they don't even know who belongs where. So you can easily fall a victim of those thorough beatings.
You have been on this platform for so many times before the voting.
Right.
So what was different with your party Secretary General and your colleague from Embakasi East?
Well, remember,
because they mingle so easily with the people.
Well, you remember they represent Nairobi.
Yeah.
The senator, the Secretary General is a senator of Nairobi.
Yeah.
Babu Owino is a member of Parliament from Nairobi. I'm not a member of Parliament from Nairobi, and I believe, whereas many Kenyans know me, they see me on television, I do not really know whether that is enough to safeguard, you know, or provide safety to my presence in Parliament as at that time. But also remember that on the same day, the president unleashed military officials from the barracks to come and occupy the country, not just Nairobi. And later on, they brought that motion into Parliament so that we could sanitize. Because again, you cannot bring out members of the military on the streets without the approval of Parliament. So things worked the reverse. So they unleashed them on the streets and later on brought it to Parliament too. So I was only trying to qualify how the country almost went on the precipice.
Is that respect for the Constitution, Mheshimiwa?
Breaching Parliament is
no. The deployment
of the Kenya Defence
Force. Deployment of the Kenya Defence Force without.
Yeah, no. That was wrong. That was wrong. We raised it, and at that time, then they called Parliament back to pass that kind of, release of military officials. That was a breach of the Constitution as well. And we say it as much.
At least now you're admitting something.
Let me also say this. Well, you remember, we joined with the president after they shook hands. Yeah, so, and we did that to stabilize the country. That is why now we can freely talk. Somebody like you would be taken by Subarus out here upon leaving Royal Media House. But we had to bring sanity.
On what grounds?
Well, there were many grounds before we joined. So, but let me say this.
As you finish
let me say this.
Yes, please finish up.
For the first time in the history of Africa, a president acknowledges the brutality meted on his people by the police. And he goes ahead to say, those victims, even though 2017 he wasn't the president, they must be compensated.
But he called but he called the innocent people of Nyanza region militia.
Who did?
William Ruto, the deputy president then.
Well, that has not stopped him from accepting compensation to go to the people who suffered. So that is why I'm saying
But Honorable Jared, why do you, a parliamentarian, it's so disturbing, is it, and appalling when you, a ranking member of the party, ODM party as well, today at the expense of presidential proclamation, bills it or tout its big matter, big issue, when the president says victims should be compensated. Yet there is an entire report called the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, where more than 40,000 submissions have been made, which documented all the historical injustices since 1963. And you parliamentarians overlook that because the occupant at State House, whoever it is not willing to give it the direction to do so. You have the power to invoke that. Why not also relook back?
Why haven't the victims of Agala massacre, for example,
when we joined President Ruto to help stabilize our nation, what was on the cards then were the victims of police brutality, and we voiced it as much. Remember, the Truth and Justice Commission report, dubbed Ndungu report, was not brought during President Ruto's tenure.
What's your view, given that your party came to provide what in many ways was defended as the provision of that much-needed stabilizer in government at the height of the thunderbolt from the Kenyan youth?
Well, thank you. Let me begin by looking at the Standard headline. Give it to them. They have been very consistent in fighting the government. Not constructive criticism, but fighting the government. Whether it is because the owner of the Standard Group, who was a former senator from Baringo, who was shoved by the wayside by President Ruto when he got into office, and the former KANU being a shell right now, being led by the owner of Standard Group, may have had a lot of issues with the president, and therefore the only platform he has now that he's out of the Senate is to hit hard the government. And they have been consistent to the effect that there is right here that the pact between Honorable Raila Odinga and President Ruto, that pact has blurred the opposition to the effect that no one knows whether opposition exists or whether their voices really have meaning. But interestingly, on the same note, they have a caption of Kalonzo Musyoka, giving him prominence on the headlines. So you wonder whether the blurry status of the opposition still holds water when they still have to give Kalonzo Musyoka such degree of prominence. But coming back to your question, the overall state of the nation is that we are turning the corner. That is a matter of fact. Depending on who would want to see it. But the dark clouds that we had before are beginning to scatter. But you have the opposition, which the Standard also confirms that their voices don't really matter in our current political arrangement, that will never acknowledge that this country is making some gigantic steps towards progress. And I will qualify my statement, Ayub.
By the provision of examples?
Right.
Okay.
By provision of examples, yes, I will do that. And they do all this hoping that the government will fall. Even the Standard newspaper here, when we talk about patriotism as a nation, and the owner of the Standard Group, let me come back to him, he's a former senator. And every leader must have the interest of the nation at heart. And when people castigate government, I acknowledge that it is the work of the opposition to castigate government. But we also have to remember that you have a country to protect. Without that country, and we almost came to the precipice on June 25th last year, if the country fell then we would not even have a country to castigate. So even as we criticize, it should be objective, it should be targeted, and it should be provision of alternatives that move our country to the next step. Now, let me come back as you were asking.
So what is in 1, 2, 3, 4?
I would like to see some examples.
Yeah, that is what I'm coming to.
Okay.
Number one,
yes.
Number one, we have attained political stability since coming together between ODM and UDA. And that is something, no one can really...
How do you qualify that stability aspect of your statement?
By saying that the only disruption we have had this year was the Sabasaba on the 7th of July this year, which was also, thwarted by the security agencies in good time. But remember also that 10 years of President Kibaki and 10 years of Uhuru Kenyatta, no one commemorated Sabasaba. Why are they doing it now? Because the presidency is in the hands of a wrong tribe.
And this issue of trying to remind us of the things that happened in the past, oh, blah, blah, we did this was done because of this. I think it should come to an end. And then number two, we had got Aukot, that is the party leader of Three-Way Alliance, was talking about the issue of leadership and the leadership, which was saying that leadership has turned into cartels.
I think, first of all, I'm just hoping that this is a learning curve for Kenyans, that now we can see the long political con game of the people who have masqueraded or projected themselves as leaders of the opposition, champions of democracy, and now fraternizing with an obviously failing government that Kenyans generally agree lied to them in 2022, gave a lot of political promises and all that. But then again, Ayub, I'm not so surprised because these people come a long way. Political leadership in Kenya is actually a cartel, and I'm hoping that Kenyans will now begin to move away from the same names for a long time. Because when you critically or deconstruct these personalities, you actually do not see any transformational thing that they may have done apart from just claiming that they have championed certain things. In fact, a lot of these folks, what they do is they buy these newspapers. They don't even read the headline these days. They go to the obituary page and look at who has died where and whether that funeral is worth attending or not. And then, of course, they'll mobilize around their tribes and all. Their business is politics. And that's why you can see even in the Daily Nation headline, we should be worried as parents that 123,000 missing grade 9 students. As a parent in this country, I should be more concerned about education rather than this fraternizing. This union has killed what was the hope of Kenyans, that we can have actually an opposition that can oversight government, that can legislate, can do pro-people legislation, and represent. As a matter of fact, because of this union, the legislature, where my good brother Gerald sits, is now an extension of the executive. And that's why you can see the bad laws, the housing levy laws, the SHA and all those. Nobody's oversighting government. And yes, I agree with the standard completely. This is just a marriage of convenience. It's a very selfish union. It does not have Kenyans on the radar. And if you look at all the things that my brother Bukar and even Gerald has said, it boils down to one thing, about the leadership of our country. All question about patriotism. Where do I want my country to be as a leader? When I occupy that public office, what is it that I'm doing to make my country better? So that we, for example, from the north, we should no longer be talking about this issue of marginalization. Why isn't infrastructure the same in the northern part of Kenya or other parts of Kenya as it is elsewhere? And this is the reason why we created deliberately the Equalization Fund in Article 204. And I think if the leadership of our country really wanted to build a nation state, because today we are not a nation state, we are just a conglomerate of tribal, people found ourselves in one geographical location called Kenya. But if we wanted to build a nation state, then we must make sure that, for example, in Wajir or Mandera or Turkana, at the farthest corners, Loitoktok and the rest, I can still, as a Kenyan today, emigrate and still live and still enjoy services in that part. Bukari, I will tell you, he can move from one state to the other and he will not miss anything. Everything will be in the US, in Europe, the same thing. That is the kind of vision that we are lacking in the kind of leadership that we have in Kenya today. And for example, if really we wanted to expedite equity, we may not achieve the ideal of equality because that's really an ideal, but equity in this country, if I was president of this country, all I need to do is just speak the Auditor General report. I work with accountants in my line of business. I work with accountants and auditors. And when we read this Auditor General report and the kind of findings the auditor makes, accountants will tell you it will not take me 10 minutes or 20 minutes to take the stand and testify that this governor, this MP stole the money, because the evidence is there. The Auditor General takes about maybe 6 months of auditing, and then even sending those comments and ask them to account. By the time they make the findings, it's a finding that should be able to take somebody to a criminal trial. But what do the members of parliament do? They now convert those findings into comments. They start investigating afresh when the Auditor General already penned down a finding. So it is the members of parliament who should be telling Governor X, MP Y, account for this money. And we should be able to see people actually go to jail. We are not jailing thieves of public money. But if you steal a chicken today or maize, utafungwa. So for me, it's a whole question of governance and leadership that actually is failing. And that's why Gerard is struggling to explain why did Kenyans felt fit to actually invade parliament. Because they are angry. They are annoyed with the leadership. And when people are angry, Honorable Gerald, they will take power unto themselves. And I like sometimes to draw parallels, and people think that I make a very unpopular, example.
Yes.
Or Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. If you look at for example, what Ibrahim Traoré is doing in Burkina Faso, he's done amazing things. He's transformed that country within 2 years. Already paid the national debt. He has flagship projects that are actually now making Burkinabe people very proud of their guy. But here in Kenya, we want to argue the idea of democracy. We hide behind democracy, but actually we keep on persecuting our people. That military guy has not even increased his salary. He drives in a small Land Cruiser, walks the street, and people cheer him. And he's doing transformational things for his country. I'm not advocating for coups, but what I'm saying is, if you are a leader, do the right thing for your country, and people will love you.
Yeah, our dispensation is certainly right, is it, Daktari, given that you also midwifed his Katiba. So is our problem a democracy without Democrats then?
It was Professor Aukot who once said that constitutions without constitutionalism is, I think I can't remember the phrase, but anyway, he talked about constitutions without constitutionalism. Constitutionalism being the culture, the tradition. But see, you can enact laws. We can write ourselves a good constitution. Like ours is a very, by the way, progressive and developmental constitution. It's actually one of the most cited constitutions in the last, if you look at constitutions in Africa in the last maybe 20, 30 years, Kenya's constitution is very progressive. And I've gone to many countries to speak about how we made our constitution. But constitution is a living document. We must breathe life into the constitution. We must live the ethos and pathos of a constitution, the values of the constitution. For example, if you look at Article 10 of the constitution, it talks about national values and principles of governance. How are we living those national values and principles of governance? So we have to breathe life into our constitution. I mean, you can write yourself the most beautiful constitution, but it may not even be what the paper is written on if people do not enforce it, people do not respect it. Here you have, for example, blood-based government people will say that we have made some progress. You swear under Article 3 to protect, uphold, and respect the Constitution. Yeah? But then you go ahead to give shoot-to-kill orders, violating the entire Chapter 4 Bill of Rights. I mean, do you respect the Constitution at that stage? No. So for me, I go back to the question of how are we as a country being led and governed, especially when people will give responsibilities.
I really support that. That the leadership that we have right now has really turned into cartels. That is why every moment they wake up, they look at, they buy the newspapers, they look at buy the newspapers, they try, yani kama wananusia penye kuna matanga. Those are the places that, okay, hii ni pale ambako tunaweza tukaenda tukapige siasa. Those are the kind of things that they are doing. And the third one, we have got Abukar Abdirahman, that is the political economist, where we was talking about Kenyans, that Kenyans need new blood.
Come to you, Jared. But Abukar, the point here is then many Kenyans see this union as a betrayal to the constitution, and ideally one that still is on the periphery in terms of meeting their needs, social, political, and economical. Looking forward into 2027, given the changes in our demography, are we seeing a gradual phasing out of the old folks here and Kenya being on the cusp of transformation by the next polls?
Well, time will tell, but that is likely to happen. For example, what I will say is, even in my county, I'm a governor aspirant, Mandera County, 2027. And we hope to bring new changes, new faces, people who have new ideas, not recycling the old. So to the extent that, it's likely that we may be able to see, what you just described in terms of seeing new faces, new changes. And I think Kenya needs that. Because I think recycling the same people, the same ideas doesn't get us anywhere. We need people with fresh ideas. Take, for example, you see in the papers today 123 missing grade 9 students. Where are those students? These are our children. So if you look at these other countries, they have programs like gifted programs, whereby you identify kids at a very early age, and those are the kids. When you have those kind of programs, those are the kids that have made America develop. They identify those kids at an early age, put them through a rigorous, process, system, because the normal system doesn't work for those kind of kids. They're ahead of everybody, they're highly gifted, and those are the ones who bring research, development, technological advancements, and those are the ones that take the country to the next level. So you ask yourself, where are 123,000 kids? Those are the kind of changes that we need to bring, and we need new ideas, new fresh crop of leadership that can actually think about those things, bring the country take the country to the next level.
Is that a general feeling you have of Kenya, given what we witnessed in 2024?
Yes, that's a general feeling I have about the country. We need a lot of. So there are a lot of things that are happening, for example, like this e-procurement system. That is a good thing that we need to embrace. And I know there's a lot of opposition from the county, the governments, partly because I think there was a pilot program that didn't necessarily go very well. But with every new system, every time you are implementing a new system, for the first 2-3 years, you're likely to see some hurdles, some challenges. But that's the right way to go. It creates efficiency. It deals with corruption issues. It's very important with strategic developments like data analytics, efficiency, creating relations, supply chain management, all that stuff. So, and the next step is probably e-invoicing, whereby we don't have to be running after invoices. We create a platform, on the cloud that's able to do invoicing, online. So those are the kind of things that we need. And I think those kind of fresh ideas will come with new faces, with fresh faces. And I hope to see that in 2027.
Yes, Honorable Jared.
The new change. Of course, you and I knows that right now as a country, what we need is a new blood. We need new leaders. We are tired of these leaders giving us things. Hata wakati uko kwa nyumba, you can't be eating one meal every day. You have to change. Wakati mwingine huwezi kuwa unakula nyama kila siku, hata kama nyama ni tamu kiasi gani ama kuku, huwezi kuwa unakula nyama na kuku kila wakati. Sometimes you decide acha nikule tu mboga peke yake. Let me just eat sukuma wiki. Let me just eat cabbage. Let me just eat how do we call it, mrenda. You have to balance. But now for us, these people think that simply because now we see them, we've been seeing them as godfathers in politics, now they need to rule us the way we want, or the way they think. That is not the way Kenyans need to be ruled.